Anxiety and Depression, You're Not Alone. May 7, 2018. Amanda Bosk. Did you know anxiety disorders are the most common mental illness in the United States, affecting over 40 million adults ages 18 and older, or 18.1% of America's population every year, according to the Anxiety and Depression Association of America. 40 million adults alone, just in the U.S. I can't even imagine the countless number of young teens being added to the statistics on a daily basis. If you or a loved one have ever had a history with anxiety and depression, the truth is, you are not alone. I've always been a pretty easygoing person, as far as I could remember at least, hopeful, polite, and seemingly content, yet I basically lived under a rock, you know the term, naive of the world and the real reality of life and what had yet to come. I never understood anxiety or depression, and I certainly never thought I would have to figure it out either. To be quite honest with you, growing up, I rarely let things bother me. People would probably remember me for my enthusiasm and my just going with the flow attitude on life. I was as curious as George, yet brave like a lion on one hand, and on the other hand, deeply fearful of the unknown. I felt like I was the only one in the world thinking the thoughts I used to have. My fear ran deeply, but I was too afraid to talk about it with anyone. All I could do was cry and make up some easy excuse to brush it off and suppress it. I thought my mom was the most beautiful person in the universe, and when she smiled it lit up my whole world. Whenever the smile on her face was because of me, I knew I found my purpose in life, to make her happy. But it seemed like me achieving my goals to make her happy started to happen a lot much less as the years flew by. My mom changed. This all followed after her getting pregnant, married for the first time and moving my sister and I 6 hours away from my dad. Things changed, and they changed fast. I thought I'd never heal from that. Eventually I started to feel more like an annoyance, a problem, a thing. I was always the guinea pig, black sheep or scapegoat of my family. I felt like I was an orphan, or supposed to be at least, except from my dad, 6 hours away. You can probably sense that I was the middle child. I bet you can also guess the immensity of attachment issues and insecurities I turned out to be a great match to as the years went by as well. How does a 6-year-old build the courage to tell her mother how scared she is that she might die one day and never get to see her again, when her mommy is busy dealing with the rest of the family and priorities bigger than my silly fear of death? My mom wasn't necessarily a happy person all the time growing up, quite the opposite. I don't blame her. But on a brighter note, she's a crucial part of the reason why I still choose to smile today. I remember never having a voice of my own, always trying to accept the truth and beliefs of others to be my own. I was a victim, and didn't even know how trapped of a life such a mindset encouraged me to be in, for so long. I realized now, at 23 years old, why I fell victim to so many of the circumstances I've allowed myself to go through and ended up hating myself for. I say allowed because I did allow it. I allowed it because I never spoke up for myself as a child. I allowed it because instead of owning up to my responsibilities I blamed someone else because I thought I was the hopeless victim. Now I must add, because I emphasized I allowed, I am not trying to imply that I am to blame either. And you should never blame yourself for anything that has happened to you growing up, nor should you feel ashamed. Pointing the finger was just an easier option to me than owning up and taking charge of my life. Of course, from my childish perspective, it took me getting broken, burned, and betrayed before I finally realized I didn't have to be a victim anymore. And why would I have ever even wanted to be in the first place? Why would I want to throw a pity party for myself when I could be building myself back up strong, and change my circumstances to where I won't be putting myself in any potential victim-like situations again? I didn't have to blame the world anymore. Because of this deep reflecting, I recognized how strong and resilient I truly am. It felt empowering, although I'm so grateful for the person I have become today, and that I even got this far in my mental and emotional progression thus far. Sometimes I still try to figure out why I never spoke up. It's a bit of a challenge at times, but it helps to know that I needed to follow this path to get to where I am today. It took me a pretty long time to figure out who I really was, and most importantly, why. Up until the age 21, I never actually took out the time to reflect on my past, unresolved childhood traumas, and let alone the treasure chest full of shame buried deep in my closet. My life was a jumble of ups and downs, and on the verge of yet another downward spiral, and I didn't even see it coming. After high school, your typical 18-year-old feels on top of the world and ready to tackle it head-on. Then there was me. I wanted to disappear from everything. Instead, I did the opposite. I swore into the United States Army Reserves only weeks before graduation. I guess I thought disappearing was what I was going to be doing, or maybe I was just completely brainwashed. I couldn't tell you at the moment. I am well aware, however, that depression played a major role in that not-so-wisely thought-out decision. The layers of pain and disaster I never even knew I could have possibly gotten myself into has been immense, all because I failed to address my pain from the very start. Here I am, 6 years later, alive and ready to share my learning experiences, and the journey along the way. I won't get into too much more today. I don't want to get too personal and bore everyone to death, just yet lol. I hope some of these brief summaries of my life will give you a bit of a better understanding as to who I am and why I'm sharing these insights with the world. No one deserves to feel alone along their journey, and my goal is to let you know through my own life experiences that you are not alone. Instead of dwelling on negative anxiety-provoking thoughts, let's shift our focus to the things we love in life and strive to make better choices and circumstances for ourselves. We all deserve to be free of suffering. Anxiety and depression will only take over you if you let it. Why should we allow it to define us any longer? I'd love to play a part in your growth and progression. If you or anyone you know has had any experiences or questions they'd like to share, feel free to comment, email anything related to this week's topic, anxiety and depression. If you have any topics you'd like me to cover, just email me at jazzofA@gmail.com. It's always a pleasure to be of assistance. Namaste.